guys, welcome back to the FSeries channel. We hope you are all well. Today we are back with a brand new U-turn video. So if you haven't seen the first one with Tomo, go check it out after this video. But the premise of U-turn is that we start off with a statement, and I'm going to ask the girls and our special guest if they agree or disagree, and then we're going to try and convince the other side of our reasonings, and then we'll come back at the end of the video and see who still agrees, who disagrees, or if we've had a U-turn. And for today we have Aldas on. He is our wonderful special guest, so let's all give a warm welcome.
I'm just I'm clapping for myself at the moment, but yeah. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to this one. It's going to be hopefully chaos and carnage, which I absolutely love. So yeah, look, this should be a good one.
Yes, it is going to be a good one. And let's just get straight into it. So the statement that we have for the video today is: classic tracks are better than modern tracks. So this one is going to create a few arguments I'm sensing. Let's start with you, Aldas. Tell us, do you agree or disagree simply?
I am all about the classic tracks, so I definitely agree.
Beth?
I mean, we all know I'm a Monaco simp, so I've got to agree. Classic tracks are just the better one.
Kira?
I am on the other side, and I'm going to disagree, and I believe that modern tracks are better.
Char?
I'm very in the middle, but I think I can probably argue for both, but I'm going to join Kira this time and say disagree.
Ooh, I'm going to argue for agree, but I am very in the middle as well. So very much looking forward to getting into this argument. So who wants to start off with their first debate point?
I think we should let Aldas go first.
As the guest.
You put me right into the deep end, aren't you? Just let me have it. I mean, classic tracks, they're the ones we all look forward to. I mean, when you look at the calendar, it's full, by the way. I mean, 23 races is like far too much even for me. I mean, it's like, just watching Formula One is like going to the gym, and 23 is far too much, and I can't even imagine what it's like for the teams. But the tracks that we all look forward to, it's the Silverstones, the Monzas, the Spies, all the classic tracks. And to be honest, I do think that the tracks that people don't like as much, oh my god, France, and oh my god, Abu Dhabi, I feel that just says it all. We look forward to the best tracks, and the best tracks are the classic ones because of all of the history, and because they just give us really great racing. So don't get me wrong, as a spectacle, and I'm sure as a fan, it's great to go to newer tracks because of all of the buildings, but come on, it's classic tracks all the way.
I mean,
okay.
yeah,
Stunned.
I kind of get your point, but but also I think it determines what you class as a classic track, because there's like some tracks that could be classics, could be not. And when I think of obviously everyone knows I love the gravel traps on like sort of classic tracks, but if you just look at like Baku and like street sort of circuits like that, and I just love Baku so much. It's got the vibes. So I think there is something about sort of new tracks. Obviously there is some of the new tracks that aren't as great, like what we see like with France obviously, but I do think there is some good new tracks. So yeah, I think I love Baku. Baku's my favourite. So my whole argument is about Baku.
Just Baku.
Yeah, I mean, pulling off from that, like when Baku was first introduced, like 6 years ago or whatever, people it got so much stick. It was like, this is going to be awful. Now look at it. I think everyone gets excited for Baku. Like, I think everyone, no matter what, is going to get excited for Baku because it's just a great place. But there are some, I think, as you said, Charlotte, there's like a fine line between, well, is it a classic or is it modern? Because you could take, I don't know, like Turkey, you could take places like that are actually kind of classed as a modern track, but they still do have the grass, they have the gravel, etc, etc. Like, I think when people think of a modern track, they instantly think of like Paul Ricard or Abu Dhabi or somewhere like that, and they instantly go, oh, boring racing. But you know, you could take somewhere like Spain, Barcelona, also boring racing, but you've also got the gravel and you've also got the grass, etc. So the argument like that, I guess, when you actually weigh them up, it's actually kind of, you get both at both places, you know. So I think modern tracks just do get a little bit more stick than they probably should. And I personally think that, you know, we know over the past couple of years, Formula One has been kind of boring wherever you go. Like, there's certain places you go and it's like, oh, this is not good here. Or you go somewhere where you think it's going to be great, oh, it's not going to be good here. So that's why it's really important for me, especially, is when you take like a spec series, like you take F2 or you take F3 and you take them there, then you can really see what the racing is like. Because I feel like, as I've said, Formula 1, you know, we always know who's going to win. We know the end result. You know, not much is going to change. But if you take a spec series, like for example, when F2 go to Baku or F3 are actually going to Kota this year, I think that's when we're really going to see how good the racing is. So I think, you know, people will look at the modern tracks with Formula 1 and they think, oh, this isn't actually very good, but there's certain Formula 1 tracks that the spec series will go to and it's amazing. So maybe it's kind of not just the track's fault, it's also the series. I don't know.
I mean,
Oh, go on.
I think for me personally, as someone who is still, I guess, classed as like a fairly new fan, the reason why I love classic tracks so much is because even before I became a fan of Formula 1, that's what I associated Formula 1 with. Like, even before watching, I have memories of my dad watching it on the telly, and the tracks which I already knew as I was starting to become a fan were the classic tracks. So I knew of Silverstone, I knew of Spa, I knew of Monaco, and it's synonymous with Formula 1, and I think that's what makes it so special and why I feel like these classic tracks have more of a weight than modern tracks, because I feel like there's certain tracks that we will never see a Formula 1 calendar without, because the Formula 1 season would not be the same without them, and that's what makes them so great. Whereas I think with the majority of modern tracks, you can take them off and we would be like, oh, that's a shame, but there's plenty of other modern tracks that we would replace them with. Whereas I don't think you can ever replace Silverstone, I don't think you can ever replace Spa, I don't think you can ever replace Monaco, and that's why that's so special to me.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but tracks like Silverstone haven't always been on the calendar, and I don't think Spa has as well. There was a period between like the 60s and the late 80s or something that Spa wasn't on the calendar. So all of these classic tracks weren't there for a while. But that kind of just brings it up to me. Do we associate the classic tracks being the best tracks because they've been on the calendar for longer and therefore have had more time to create a lot of great races? So somewhere like Abu Dhabi, oh no, that's not a good example. Okay, let's use another one. Someone like Bahrain, who hasn't been on the calendar for all of that long, but has actually produced some really exciting races. Do we then say in a few years' time that could be considered a classic track? What? This keeps falling off. I'm sorry. Do we say that Bahrain should be considered a classic track in a few years, or will these modern tracks right now be considered classic tracks in a few years because we'll have had more races there? And does that kind of glorify the other tracks that we have in our eyes because we've just had so many races there that we just can't imagine not going to Monza, or like we can't imagine not going to Spa or Monaco? Is it just so ingrained that we just think that we have to have them in order to have great calendars? Because even if we think back to last year, like, I'm going to ask you, which were your most which were the best races of?
No, because I can't remember. You know, I can't remember.
Oh yeah, but if you look back to last year, Steph, Monaco weren't there. Like,
okay, true, but that was as a result of COVID,
but
so we're not going to talk about that.
But we did see a calendar season without the classic track.
But that's like the point I'm trying to make as well. Like, Silverstone last year wasn't a great race. The only reason we remember it is because everyone's tyres blew up. That's the only reason we remember it. But
but we still remember it because of it. You can't take that away from it. I mean, Silverstone is that type of track.
Okay, well, let's use Spa then. Spa was not a good race last year. It was not the most exciting one we've had at Spa. So, like, if we just compare somewhere like Spa to like Sakir, let's use Sakir, then that's a modern track versus an old track. I don't know where I'm going with this anymore.
Yeah, but what about? I mean, let's talk about Russia then. Let's talk about Abu Dhabi as well. Let's throw those bangers in, because they definitely were, absolute bangers last year. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of new tracks and that give great racing. I think I would class Sepang as well, even though it's not on the calendar, as a great track. Turkey as well, that's a new track as well. I think that was in like early 2000s or something. So, and Kota. So there is good new tracks, but I don't think we're going to be looking in 20 years' time and thinking, oh my God, Abu Dhabi. I mean, I just love that it's on the calendar, or even Russia. Hopefully they don't stay for that long. But with the older tracks, they're not just on the calendar because of the history. I mean, maybe Monaco, but I'm kind of with Beth. I am on that sim train right there for Monaco. I love it. But the
no,
reason
we've
why
got
we
two
go
of
back to
them.
Monza every single year is because the racing is great. It's obviously Ferrari as well, so it does have that heritage. But even last year, even though the racing itself wasn't amazing, I mean, the storyline of like Pierre Gasly winning, you just can't match that kind of emotional kind of attachment to Monza. So I feel like that's why the older tracks have something special as well.
Sorry, I don't know about you, but me sitting in my chair crying about George not winning Sakir, that's the emotion that I felt when I saw Gasly winning. So.
But guys, Kevin Magnussen could have pulled over at any pit entry, okay? Lewis Hamilton could have gone in when he shouldn't have done at any race, okay? We could have had it in Abu Dhabi, you know? Like, it was the
would've spiced it
circumstantial. It was circumstantial Monza, not taken away. Like, I would say, probably because Monza's the only one I remember, but it was actually, like, one of my favourite ones last year. But again, it's circumstantial. It's what happens there. Like, again, we take, like, Portimao from last year. We were like, oh my God, it's so good. Let's get it back forever. But it's because we had a resurfaced track and we had rain. Whereas this year, we've realised, actually...
Don't remember us having rain at Portimao last year.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It was wet. It was wet
It was
at
like
the
lap
start.
one.
Yeah.
For like the
Yeah,
first
that's
couple
what
of laps.
Carlos
This is
Sainz
why
should-
Carlos Sainz ended up in
Yeah.
Yes, because
Yes.
Carlos is the only
Sus
one who
pal,
can
I
drive in the
honestly
work.
thought you were just talking about Turkey and I was about to start laughing.
Steph literally, she only watches the
No.
highlights, just the 6-minute highlights on YouTube. That's
Didn't
it.
even watch.
I'm not doing it, okay?
I mean, I think... No, wait. I don't know what I was going to say.
I just think again, it's like that fine line. But I think obviously there are some great circuits, and you associate Formula One with the big circuits, like you said, like Monza, like Silverstone, like Spa, like Monaco. But at the end of the day, we're taking modern tracks and we're bringing them into the calendar for a reason, because it is 2021 and we can't live in like the 1960s anymore. Like we can't just stay there forever. We need the mix of modern and classic. And again, we may not need the mix of the modern, i.e., like the Paul Ricard and Abu Dhabi, but
How modern is Paul Ricard? Because we
It's
keep bringing it
not
up
that
as an
modern,
example,
I
but I thought it
swear.
was a pretty old track that basically just got remodeled.
They kind of, I
well,
think the
that's the
place
same-
was there for quite a while, but then the track was
Yeah.
like, they kind of changed the track over the last 10 years in terms of the layout. So it's an old track, but the layout is, the layout, which is terrible, is modern. If that makes sense.
So you can talk about then like Mexico as well, because Mexico got remodeled as well, but
yeah,
that
but
is
it's
a
a bit
classic track
different
in...
because Paul
in-
Ricard is completely resurfaced and there's just them like weird line things around it. Like it's so different from anything else. You know them things that are meant to stop you and they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that.
But yeah.
Oh, sorry. Like that also, like if you think, obviously the classic tracks are there because they are like so good. But like if you look back at the calendars that were back when these classic tracks were around, there would have been other tracks in that calendar that just wouldn't fit the bill. And that's the reason why we do have these classic tracks. It's gone through evolution and evolution and evolution. So who's like to say that like Bahrain might not be a classic track in like 5 years time and then Paul Ricard won't be on the calendar because everyone don't like it. I do think it is like down to like timing and how it is like developing, but also I can see why we still do have Silverstone, we still do have Monza, because they are brilliant and they do produce good races most of the time.
I mean, I think one massive thing when it comes to these more modern tracks as well is obviously we're seeing Formula One try to accommodate for things which is not just racing, whereas previously it was all focused on the racing, but now you've got so much more beyond the racing of Formula One. You've got to think of the fans, you've got to think of accommodation, you've got to think of hospitality and so much more, which I 100% get, and tourism as well, which is why we're seeing, like, for example, Miami is now announced for the 2022 calendar. That's a street circuit. A lot of people are looking at it and saying this is going to be an awful track, but the amount that's going to bring into the sport in other ways is great. But you take one look at Silverstone and that shows that you don't need to do it for all of these other modern day tracks, because Silverstone is the most attended Grand Prix when we don't have a Panini going on, and it is a classic track and it shows that you can still mesh the two together. So I understand that we also have modern tracks for other reasons other than racing, but Silverstone is just the example which just shows no, you can actually do the two together. And I just think everyone just needs to like put a bit more work in and making sure that the two mesh together nicely, because it can be done.
Beth, you should do it.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, put me in charge, Formula One. Give me a job.
Now, I was just going to bring up South Africa, which I just thought of. It just popped into my head because that is a classic track, isn't it? Because we used to race there a lot. But what Formula One could actually do is, instead of creating all of these modern circuits, sort that out so you can make it a grade 1 circuit and we can go back to somewhere like that. Or sort out Argentina so that we can go back over there and just sort out these great tracks who had great races, instead of trying to fabricate like let's move on to Kota, because Kota is a fabrication and it's kind of a jumble together of a lot of great elements from a lot of different classic tracks, and it just is jumbled together to make this great modern track. But instead of doing something like that, should we just be focusing on the elements in the classic tracks that we love and looking to remake the classic tracks better again? Do you know where I'm going with this?
I think the great
Let's talk
example
Kota.
of that is we went back to Imola. We've been back to Imola twice now, and we sort of were like, oh, is it going to be a good race? Is it not? And I do think we had some kind of circumstances where it did end up turning into a great race, and if we didn't have that, it wouldn't. But only time will tell if we carry on going there as to whether it's good. So I really like your point there of all of these classic tracks, which I guess have been like forgotten in F1 history. Why aren't we putting the effort in to bring them back and just see what happens, because the 2020 season really showed to us that F1 really can be adaptable and can move the calendar around when it absolutely has to, and its hand is forced to. And now we're going back to the tracks which we genuinely thought we might not ever see on the calendar again. We've obviously gone back to Imola, we've gone back to Portugal, and we're going back to Turkey as well. I mean, fans were asking to go back to Turkey for so long, and it literally took a pandemic to happen. And then we had such a great race that when we needed a replacement, it was on the ball. So maybe Formula One, just like look into all of your like archives.
I feel like
Turkey is considered as a modern
put a
track.
bit of money in and work towards that, because Kota, I think, is one of the best examples of a modern track that makes it work, and it's because it's taking inspiration from the classic tracks, which we all know and love, and taking all of those elements but making it into something which is more modern, and that's when it works, rather than just going, let's have a new track just for the funsies, but not really doing anything with it that makes it a good track.
I think, although also we haven't talked about in terms of, because all of this is a part of it is because of the money. The reason why we're going to Miami is because of the money. And one track that we haven't talked about that is coming up, Jeddah. That's another kind of controversial one. And again, we're going there because of money. The reason why the FIA don't want to put money into somewhere like South Africa or something, they want to, there's money coming in from the Middle East to have races there. So I think there can be mixture in the calendar. And I think it's something that Charlotte said that I quite liked, which is that good tracks become classics. Bahrain, it will become a classic in like 10, 20 years because it is a great track. So I feel like, but that's kind of the journey of all of the new tracks. We've had loads of new tracks throughout Formula One, and they've eventually, if they're not good enough, they do fall off the calendar. So maybe it's just kind of the natural process of, there's some good new tracks and some old ones, and eventually the good ones will become classics that we maybe in 20 years argue against. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but for sure there has to be a balance, and quite a bit of it is down to money, obviously.
Yeah, I also have a point to make as well on the kind of money over good tracks front. So do you remember last year when the whole we're going to build a new Brazilian Grand Prix racetrack,
oh, God,
no longer going to be at Interlagos?
Do
like you remember how much everyone kicked off because Interlagos is a classic track and it belongs on the calendar, and in reality it should be the season finale, but that's a topic for another
100%.
video. But the point I'm trying to make is that there was absolute uproar when the thought of having another track besides that came on, and it's just because there is so much attachment and there is so much great racing that we've seen there over the years that the thought of having another track replace it that is going to be modern. And at the end of the day, we didn't know if the racing was going to be any better, but we already know that the racing is so good at Interlagos that we don't want to chance it or play that game or do whatever with another track at Interlagos and with another track in Brazil. And so I think that that's very representative of how we all feel about classic tracks. And could you imagine the scenes that would go on in the UK if someone was like, oh no, we're gonna go race around a street circuit in London instead of going to Silverstone? Could you imagine the chaos?
I mean, I think one of the big things as well within the new one that they were going to build instead of Interlagos was the fact that they were literally going to chop down a rainforest.
That was
sure
quite a
you
big
really wanna
part.
do
Yeah,
that was quite a big part of it, was the fact that they were literally going to feed into deforestation, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, I mean, it kind of does, bring that thought into it of, you don't want to get rid of your classic tracks, and I think that's the thing, that's why the modern tracks are kind of, I guess, if you look at them, they are in places where we don't already have a classic track. Like I can never see a modern track replacing Silverstone because it's just not going to happen. It's just no one's ever going to allow that. So I think we've got good modern tracks in the right countries. But again, like looking at France, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know circuits very well, but I'm pretty sure France has got like a good few tracks we could go to rather than Paul Ricard, because France is one of the biggest places within the world for motorsport. Obviously they're going to have so many more tracks that we could go to, so why we pick the worst one, I don't know. But again, a lot of it comes down to money and different motives or whatever. But I just feel like overall modern tracks shouldn't just be pushed under the carpet, because I feel like if we were to have every single race as a classic track, there would be no development, because these new tracks, as much as some of them aren't good, some of them are developed. We've looked at past tracks, older ones, and people have design teams have came up with them and they've gone, hang on, we like this bit, it doesn't work with racing on it, now we're going to put these cars on it with all the knowledge that we know. And sometimes they can actually make quite a good racetrack, like COTA. I think COTA was really good. They've really thought about that and they've taken bits from different places, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Some people are like, oh, it's just a copy of other places, but why not? What else are you going to do? Just make 2 long straights? Like, that's not going to work, is it? So I like that they've added little bits in there, and I'm really excited for COTA actually. I'm really excited to see what happens this year. But yeah, I just feel like modern tracks just get a little bit of stick, and I feel like not all modern tracks are Abu Dhabi. That's what people need to remember. Like, they don't all look like that. They don't all perform like that. And as we said, Bahrain, I think Bahrain is literally, to me, Bahrain's been like the home of Formula 1 for the last couple of years. Like, we've been there all the time and it feels really homely. Like, when we go there, especially because we've done testing there this year, I feel like that's more like home at the moment, which is crazy because you never would have thought that with Formula 1. But actually, because we're modernising and that's kind of the way we're going, these new tracks are coming up and they're making their stance in the calendar and they are here to stay. So get used to it.
That's it. That's just Kieran's take. Get used to it. Tough.
When you think back to when the outer circuit for Sakir came out and everyone was like, what is that? What is that? But when you actually think of the racing, like, yeah, there was obviously some aspects that would happen at any race, like Jack Aiken spinning out, losing, causing George, all that sort of stuff.
No.
All that.
But, like, when you saw, like, sort of the racing and, like, the timings, I was just like, actually, this is actually really good. Like, that was one of my favourite F1 weekends, despite the heartbreak. I had not felt like that for so long, and I was like, oh my god, like all the time, and that's what I love. And I really like, you need to have the emotion behind it, because obviously when we watch like Spain or Paul Ricard, I literally just sit there like, why am I sitting here watching it? Like, I know what's going to happen. So I think you do need that sort of excitement, and that is literally like what it comes down to with like modern tracks. It is literally, it's trial and error for quite a lot of them. Some of them really, really work, and some of them just really don't. And we won't know that until we actually go there and figure out if we like it, if we don't.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Right, does anyone have any further points to
No.
put forth
No, I don't think so.
regarding their arguments to try and switcheroo the other side?
I don't
Just
think
backing
so.
us the vibes, and everyone knows
Backy
that.
vibes.
Yeah, Baku.
That's
There you go. So that's their
right,
arguments.
just on that Baku thing, right? I love Baku. I do. But Baku, what came on the calendar? Was it 2017?
16.
Yeah.
2016?
16, yeah.
Not all of the races at Baku have been good. There have been some bangers. I tell you, 2017 honestly is one of my all-time favourite Formula 1 races. I just loved it so much. But like, it doesn't always create the most exciting
But you
races.
could say
I
that
will
for
throw
anywhere.
it back.
You could say that for
I will
anywhere.
throw it back to 2019 when Valtteri Bottas converted pole to a win. And that was not the most exciting Baku race. So I don't know what my point of this
There's
was. Sorry.
absolutely no
No
point.
Baku slander.
Yes, that's getting
Kick
kicked.
her out.
She's getting kicked
She
tonight.
is.
Sorry
Get out.
guys, when
Out
I'm
the
not in the
Discord.
next F-Series video, you know
know
Yeah, we know why.
Like, but you could say that about anywhere. Like, you could say Silverstone hasn't had great races. Spa the last
Yeah.
couple of years haven't. So your point, it's irrelevant. Try again.
Well, my point kind of comes back to the fact that like the classic tracks have been on there longer, so that we do have more opportunities to have had great races, and that's why people might hate on Baku a little bit, because there's been a shorter amount of time. Like 50% of the races at Silverstone could have been boring, but because it's been over like a 70-year span, people don't always remember the bad ones, whereas we've only had like 5 years of Baku, so it's very easy to remember the bad races, and that's what gives
Especially,
the modern tracks
especially
a
because we
bad
didn't
rep.
have it last year as well.
Yeah.
Like, there's just one extra year that we haven't had. Like, yeah, like imagine last year could have been a banger. Like Danny Rick could have reversed into someone else. You know what I mean? Like,
What is this
remember
Daniel
that.
Ricciardo slander all of a sudden? Where'd that come
I
from?
know.
I love Daniel, but bro, you have mirrors.
Baku
Like,
does not love Daniel.
Brilliant.
Right, okay, I'm going to ask you all the final question, see if anyone has done a U-turn on our original statement. So we will start off with you, Aldas. Do you still think that classic tracks are better than modern ones?
I always give new tracks a chance, don't get me wrong. And I do think there are some good new tracks as well, Baku. But I'm all about the classic tracks. I'm going to get a classic tracks tattoo at some point for sure. I'm classic tracks all the way. There you go. I'm committed.
All right then, okay. Right, can't wait to see that happen, Cyril.
Where is that? We need to talk about that. Where is that tattoo, by the way? We need to see it.
He's London.
Yeah, where is that?
He just
Okay,
dipped.
Beth, what do you think?
I'm proper on the fence now because you have put up a good argument, you really have, and now I'm starting to think about Baku.
Come to
Can
our
I really
side.
do this to Baku? I think
Keep going.
I am willing to give the modern tracks a chance. I really am, because I think, if anything, the 2020 season has shown me that anything can happen anywhere, and sometimes we just need to give the modern tracks a little bit of time. And yeah, there's some stinkers in there. There really is some stinkers in there. But we all agree on that, and I don't think that is a modern track problem. I think that's a different problem.
So,
So
are you making
know
a
what?
U-turn?
I'll make a wee little U-turn. I'll pop over. But I still
Traitor,
love
just
Monaco.
abandoned.
I'm still a big Monaco sim, and I forever will be. But yeah.
All right, we'll go to Kira.
I am going to stick with my original decision, which was I disagree. Was that what? Did I disagree? Is that what was the
Yeah.
Yes.
I disagree. Because I would never sit there and say classic tracks are better than modern tracks, because at the end of the day I think they're both great, and I feel like we've got to move on. It's 2021, you know, we've got to get moving. We can't be stuck in the olden days. Come on now. So I just think we should love all the tracks, and there are some great classic and great modern, and then there are some awful modern and awful classic as well. So I don't, like either of them. I just think they're all amazing, but I'm going to stick with my original disagree.
Hashtag every track deserves love.
Hashtag.
Charlotte?
Yes, I'm sticking with modern tracks just because of that, like the things that I was saying. Like in 5 years' time, it might be considered a classics. 10 years' time, and I always have this argument with Elliot. He's such a I love Monaco, and I'm such a I love Baku.
Why is he not on this
we're
podcast
always,
then?
What? Yeah, we should have asked Elliot instead of you.
I know he would have been here back in Monaco, but yeah, I'm defo sticking with modern tracks. I do love classics, but modern, I love them as well.
Alright, and finally, I am going to remain in the agree camp, because the statement was classic tracks are better than modern tracks, and there's a lot of hypotheticals that you can say that modern tracks will be better, but right now, if we group all of the classic tracks together with all of the modern tracks, because that is what this started as, then you can't tell me that Abu Dhabi is better than Silverstone. Yeah, I love the moderns. There are some great races in there, but I just personally, you can't say that the group of modern tracks at the minute is better than the group of classic tracks, even though the modern tracks are good, but they're not better. And that's my
when we
point.
do an F-Series trip to Baku, you are not invited.
Kira, we were literally going to go to Baku.
You're not coming anymore.
Also, anytime that Steph goes, I really like when we go to Bahrain, it's my favourite weekend, I'm not taking it anymore.
No, we'll hold her accountable with this video.
Don't worry, Steph. I respect it. I respect your decision.
You're not coming either
Okay,
then.
thank you.
Me and Charlotte are off.
Right. Anyway, this is going to be the end of this video because it has just descended into Steph's slander, and I am no longer a member of F-Series, which is brilliant. But we hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know in the comments down below whether you preferred the classic tracks or the modern tracks. Thank you all for watching with us. Thank you so much to Aldas for coming on for this video. We hope you enjoyed yourself for the chaos.
Yep, always. That's what I was here for. I wasn't even here for the video, just the chaos, and I definitely got it.
Yeah. There was a lot of it. Well, that is the end from us. So, bye guys. We will see you in the next
Like
video.
and
We'll see you next week.
subscribe. Bye.
Oh yeah, that too.
She didn't say it. She didn't say it. Like, subscribe.
Oh, this is the
Check
end.
out
Okay,
our
bye.
messages again. Bye.